Okay, now we're on item 4.
There was such a thing.
Sorry, that's okay. Item 4, discussion, review, and possible action. Action may include, not limited to, providing additional instructions to staff, receiving documents, and/or making a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners regarding an update from the Director or designee of the BOCC Court Services Department. Grant.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you? Just heads up and follow up from the last time you talked. I know we discussed major issue right now with the paperwork and the that one's not on. Yours not on. Okay. Contingency for.
Yeah, hang on just a minute, Grant.
Quick, make sure it's on. You gotta turn it on up there. Just hold it down so it's turning blue. Hold it up there. Oh, there we go. Okay, now.
Working?
Yeah.
Okay, so with that follow-up, throughout that period of time, I've had some good communications with some of the advisory board members. I've met with an individual from the Very Institute. I've played some email tag with Renee, but we finally were able to meet up and we discussed a few things. And at this point, something on the table is possibly getting one judge to see our paperwork, get our paperwork, and have that signed from that one individual judge. Nothing's been set in stone, nothing's solid. At this point, it's just discussions and seeing how that would work and the best avenues to take. Hopefully, we're very hopeful that'll work and get to that point. However, right now it's still in the discussion period. So that's really, as far as what I got, that's all I got on my end. If there's any questions or kind of where we're at with that.
So you're looking at streamlining?
Yes, absolutely.
So one judge, and then I would assume, and Renee can probably help you, that in the event that judge is not available, there would be a
Secondary.
backup, and we wouldn't have just one judge. And
Yes, that would be a tremendous help for our department right now. So it's in the works. Like I said, there's nothing solid, but we're certainly communicating with all the players involved to try to get that finished.
Any more questions?
Motion received.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 5, discussion, review, and possible action. Action may include, not limited to, providing additional instructions to staff, receiving departments, and/or making a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners regarding an update from the Director of the BOCC Emergency Management. Mr. Barnes, how are you?
Well, sir, thank you. Good morning. Continuing to move forward with the complete rewrite of the Oklahoma County Emergency Operation Plan, and obviously we've had weather issues of late, but Oklahoma County has fortunately been spared significant challenge in that regard. Some wind damage is about the most significant issues we continue to see, a little bit of localized flooding, but from an Oklahoma County perspective, unincorporated areas and my repeated contacts with the highway superintendents following each event indicates that those issues are going well, and we've been basically spared this year. We've had a great year in that regard. Seeing some forward movement in the office remodel down on the first floor. I'm currently using space in HR in their conference room, thanks to Dan Matthews and his staff. But other than that, we're looking forward to forward progress continuing. They're doing asbestos remediation, I believe, tonight. So that'll kind of open the door and let us move forward from there. Any questions?
When are we going to be out of tornado season?
Well, historically, the first week of May is the peak, so we're on the downside of that, although this year significant events continue to come and go on about a 4 to 6 day cycle. But the potential for tornadic activity continues to reduce, so we're on the favorable side of the peak.
Great. Got anything, Joe? Do I have a motion to receive the report?
Move to receive.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item number 6, I'm going to forego reading all this. They're all the same for the department heads. Stacy? Would you like to give us a report from the engineering department?
Good morning.
Morning.
We have 3 projects around Tinker Air Force Base. 2 of them are in District 1, one of them's in District 2. They involve some land we bought through a bond. We're going to need a bond counsel to work with on this. As you're aware, our bond counsel retired that we'd had since we've all been here for about the last 10 years. And it could be just as simple as retaining the firm he retired from, or whoever the current industrial authority attorney is, or whoever you choose, but we need to get them on board so we can get these projects off I-Center. We got a trail project, a sewer project, and then there'll be a I-40 widening project that ODOT has. And those are all already requested.
And you mentioned, Stacy, on the bond counsel, it could be as simple as retaining the current firm. Has anyone reviewed the contract that we have? Gary Bush was the principal, I would assume, but have we reviewed the contract, or?
I'm not aware of a contract. I don't know how he was retained, or
Okay.
kind of predates me, so.
Well, I have heard that Gary was replaced. I'm not sure with who.
If we could just get it official so we could start working with someone, that would help us. That's the most pressing thing I can think of. Your other projects are going pretty well. I'll answer any questions that you have.
Do we have a motion to receive the report?
Well, I would move to receive with a recommendation that the BOCC retain bond counsel.
Would that be the BOCC go for an RFP or RFQ, or since it's a service, whatever their pleasure?
Absolutely.
Aren't you good? I'll second his motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Stacy. Item 7, receive a report from the BOCC Planning Department.
Good morning.
How are you?
Everything seems to be going fine with the planning department. I'd like to report, though, for the first time in about a year, we have full membership on both the planning commission and the board of adjustment. So everything seems to be fine. We had a excessively long planning commission meeting last time. Due to the weather, we had to resume the next Thursday. And it was the first time we ever had to do that. But things seem to be going well. So, nothing else.
Any questions? Do we have a
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item number 8, receive a report from Mr. Matthews.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. You?
I'm fine.
Good. Very little to report. The biggest issue that we're dealing with right now is we're beginning to get a number of work comp claims from the detention center because of respiratory issues. I think we've had 7 come in the last 2 or 3 days. So just something to be aware of. None of them have asked to go to the doctor yet, but we're going to send them anyway because we need to get ahead of this. Our work comp attorney has taken deposition on the one case that has retained an attorney. We're expecting more to come in.
And what type of issues?
Respiratory issues from the alleged mole issues over there.
Have we looked at the potential of mold there?
We have done testing. We know there was mold issues in the basement and the kitchen area that we've remediated, but there was also some other areas that had some potential issues, and so we're need to do some additional testing there, and
then additional remediation work. At some point, the HVAC system, for the jail has been spec'd, I think, and going out for RFP soon, which will help eliminate some of those issues.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to receive the report?
Move to receive.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item number 9. Received a report from Christie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just a couple of things. Firstly, just passing along, I'm hearing that Workforce is looking at relocating over to the Lincoln property as a possibility. That has not gone very far at all, but it's sounds like it might be a possibility. And that would be it would be a loss for us as a tenant, but it would be a good location for them, and it would allow the county to retain them as tenants. So if they have to leave, that would be a good thing, I would think. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. And secondly, just a note on the discussion of us possibly relocating to Krause. Just kind of reinforcing, we're already in a high poverty area. That would put us in a even higher poverty area, so both locations as far as that go are good. The location where Krause is has a denser population, very high poverty population, poorer health outcomes, and very high incidence of emergency room usage, which is always a strong indicator of poor health outcomes in an area. So as far as the population goes, I'm just looking at various and sundry things, making sure that all the bases are covered in terms of the right thing to do in the right place to be in the best place to be. That location is very much in need. I mentioned the ER usage, that being a strong indicator. A big goal of ours is to help decrease that rate. If you can keep people on their meds regularly, you can very often keep them out of the ER. And if they're in the ER, they're probably not on their meds regularly, and they're constantly in crisis for their health management, and that's not good for them. It's not good for the taxpayers. So getting on top of it is a good thing for everybody, and this would put us in a location that we would hopefully be able to make a greater impact in terms of that as well.
Is there any kind of time schedule as far as you relocating to Krause, or is this just kind of looking at it at this point?
Just looking at it, there's no time frame. There's been no drawings or anything like that made up, and we're not in a rush to do anything. I know that there's a lot of other things going on, and so we don't need to be put way at the top of the list or anything, but it's just I would say probably within the next couple of years would hopefully be a reasonable time frame. But we don't need to be out by any certain time, of course, or so.
Do you think it would be a better fit for your organization if you were at Krause?
I think in terms of the population and the location, we're more in the midst of a greater portion of the population that uses our services. So I would say yes. And in terms of access to the location would be easier as well.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to receive the report?
Move.
All in favor?
Second. Sorry. Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Need more coffee.
Item number 10. Mr. Teal, would you like to share with us today?
Good morning, everyone. As you well know, there has been some really exciting, I would say not exciting for us, but pretty significant activity in the IT world over the last several weeks. One of those things that I'd like to bring to y'all's attention is the recent WannaCry virus ransomware. I do have something I'd like to distribute to the board on that. But as he's getting that, there's a quick short video I want to play for you. It's very short, so I want to be very respectful of your time. But it's related to this most recent outbreak. We were fortunate as a county, based on a number of our measures that we have in place, to completely avoid this. Hasn't necessarily been so for everyone. And we also have received all of our disaster recovery equipment in. Wow. And
I think your video has a virus in it.
Correct. So we received all of our disaster recovery equipment in, and we're in the process of getting that configured this week. We have some consultants coming on, along with our entire team, on configuring that and getting ready to have a fully functional backup location. One thing else that was in the news, I'm not sure if you caught it this weekend, is British Airways had a significant power failure where it took down their data center, and I'm sure they had a fully functional DR plan because they're a SOX company, but it wasn't tabletop tested enough that even a Fortune 100 company or Fortune 5 like British Airways experienced a significant failure where they had to cancel all their flights because they didn't have a fully functional DR plan in place. Now, I don't know if the data center itself exploded, but it was a huge power surge. And so I just want to play this quick 2-minute video. I think it will be really great for this board to see as far as it pertains to policy and governance and the things we're doing at the county to keep the constituents and everything up and running smooth. I think it was a link on here. Pull this up here. Give me a second here.
Noticeably, the facility management guy is on video.
We see your company different.
Excuse the advertising, will be over in a second.
How they're accessed, secure, and how well your workflow is flowing. Schedule your assessment at KioseraDocumentSolutions.com.
Here's what you need to know about the ransomware that's been dubbed WannaCry. Security experts say this is one of the worst and most widespread uses of malware they've ever seen, especially because it even caused some hospitals in the UK to have to cancel outpatient appointments. So what exactly happened to infected computers and how big is this? The ransomware actually locks up all the files in your computer and demands $300 in Bitcoin in order to regain control. People are seeing this message all around the world, and researchers say they've seen tens of thousands of infections in about 100 countries. Researchers say this is spreading through a Windows weakness known as Eternal Blue, which Microsoft released a patch for last month. This ransomware is actually just going through the internet looking through vulnerable computers, according to cybersecurity firm Malwarebytes. And that means you don't even have to click a phishing email to get infected. How can you protect yourself? Researchers aren't pointing their fingers yet, but the most amount of attacks so far have been in Taiwan, Ukraine, and Russia, according to AVAT. Former NSA contractor Edward Snowden tweeted, "If the NSA has privately disclosed the plot used to attack these hospitals when they found it, not when they lost it, this may not have happened." And that's being echoed by experts we're talking to. The scariest part about this ransomware, it's still spreading.
So all of our systems have been patched with that Microsoft patch, but that just gives you a heads up on how dynamic our industry is and the kinds of things that, oh, excuse me.
We see your production life cycle different. We see your documents.
Shows you how dynamic it is and how we have to be on our toes as a department, and how important it is that we are having a regular systematic process of checking all of these things to make sure that we keep the county safe. So, that's a quick update from my department. Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a number. I noticed in your report, the weekly report that we got sometime yesterday, in reviewing that this morning, there are a number of contracts on there that'll be upcoming. What generally is the status of your contract renewals? How are things working? Are they being sent up and sent back?
We've been moving along with those. We've got 7 items on the agenda. Most of are some very important things that we have as far as our annual renewals, Oracle, our Aegis systems, and we're trying to put up 3 to 4 or more contracts per week, so we can make sure that everything has been submitted and approved appropriately by the BOCC before the end of the fiscal year.
So everything's going well with the DA and the procedures there, and you're not being kicked back to you?
I would say so. We have an occasional item that's returned over something that I would consider small, but thank goodness, based on our interaction with the DA and some of the guidance they've given us, we've been able to make great strides on eliminating some of that and getting it right the first time. Not to say that it's 100%, but I would say that it's very, very much higher than it was previously.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, staffing. Where are you at staffing-wise?
Staffing-wise, we're doing actually well, in my opinion. I did request to have another programmer brought on based on my analysis of the programming department, and that was based on my assessment of how much work they're doing. And so I anticipate bringing on someone to assist in that department, the ERP programming department, here in the new fiscal year, which was approved in my budget.
Correct.
So other than that, I don't see any needs to add new staff as far as that's concerned. And we have a pretty decent workload, but we've been making a lot of gains as far as efficiencies gained. So we're able to focus our time on more maintenance and being able to solve problems like this ransomware as they come, instead of being always in crisis mode.
With regard to that staffing position, have you worked with HR to do a recruitment for that? Are you in the process of doing that? What's the plan there?
I haven't spoken with HR about it yet. That'll come probably in July, after we've encumbered the funds for it, and I'll go through them as soon as the new budget comes.
Wouldn't it seem that if you want a position to start when the budget starts July 1, that we would begin that process now?
Sure, we could. We could start it now. I was going to do it in July, based on the amount of work I've got going on with disaster recovery, and also with our power systems and a number of other projects, including the website. So my programming department is particularly booked until mid-July because of the work we're doing on the website, among other projects. So mid-July was around the time frame that I thought would be a good opportunity to be able to start advertising for that.
But if they're booked and you need help, I'm confused.
Concerning? What are you confused?
Your programming department is booked until mid-July. They have a high workload, yet you're going to have a position, but you're not going to recruit for it because you have so much work. I don't understand.
Well, I want to make sure that my programming department is engaged with the new hire, and that they know that we want to hire one. And so it's based on timing with the amount of work that we've got between the whole department between now and mid-July, I would say is high.
And this is an outside recruitment, internal, both? How are you planning on doing this?
I'll probably list it inside first. I need to talk to Dan about it and list it internally first and then see what we get. And then from there, if we need to advertise externally, we will.
So if you hire from within, then that would probably indicate that there's another position that would be open that you would be recruiting for?
Possibly, yes.
So all the more reason to probably start sooner? And if you hire within, there's already budget associated with that person. So then you actually have a vacant position heading into the next fiscal year. Isn't that true?
That would be true.
Okay. You've mentioned a number of times about Munis, and there's certain modules that you think we should cancel. I don't think I've ever asked you what those modules are, what functionality they provide or won't provide, the reason behind that, what the cost savings would be, and if we cancel certain modules, are you anticipating that we would have to go out and get another provider to make up for whatever functionality we would lose, and what cost?
We would not have to get another provider. I was waiting on some contract numbers from Munis to get the exact number of the modules of what that total cost would be. I just met with the Tyler Munis project team, and we decided what those modules might be, and we plan on presenting those to the June 7th policy committee.
Well, can you go ahead and enlighten me?
Sure. I don't have it right in front of me. It's about 5 modules. It saves us about $60,000 a year, and we just got the addendum contract from Tyler with those modules listed.
What are the modules?
One of them is the P card. Another one is bids and contracts. I don't know.
Okay, let me stop you right there.
Sure.
So in one of your updates, you talk about enhancing, I guess, for lack of a better term, Civic Plus to possibly use their purchasing system.
So no.
No?
No, sir. We're not going to use Civic Plus's purchasing system. Civic Plus has an HR module that the benefits department has expressed interest in. We also have what they call an applicant tracking module.
To get their electronic bids out for purchasing. You mentioned that in one of your reports, correct?
But that's not part of Civic Plus. That's something that we have within Munis. We do have a bids module. It's not a module. It's part of our overall package for Civic Plus to be able to list the bids on the website for purchasing like we do now.
Purchasing, that's what I was asking about.
Yes.
And that's no additional cost. So we drop the Munis and we go with Civic Plus. There's no additional cost going forward. We'd actually be saving.
Correct. With the exception of the HR module, which is the something that is in the works as far as discussing it with benefits and this committee. So there's a Civic HR module that I've discussed with the... So there's a module, Civic HR module, that will be presented here in the next several months when the whole benefits department is in full fruition or whatever is decided there. I'm kind of in the dark as far as what's going on with that department, but people in that department have expressed interest in using the Civic HR module for benefits in particular because it would eliminate all the paperwork and it would automate the process, and they really, really liked it. So it's something that we're considering, and it may come in the future, but no one's decided yet. It's just something we talked about.
Is there any overlap between the two systems now?
No, well, there won't be overlap for the benefits part of it. The applicant tracking part there is, and we plan on implementing that within the next year, or we're considering implementing it. So we have a series of modules as part of our project team that we'll be implementing this next year. One of them is finishing up the work order modules. Right. The other one is applicant tracking, and there's a few other ones as well. Inventory, the way we can scan inventory in using scanners. So in this next coming year, we have a number of modules that we will be implementing, and the project team has a list of the modules that they won't be using or we think are not necessary, which we need to bring before this committee to do final approval on. We don't need these modules, and we'll put it for a vote. We'll have that at the next policy and governance committee meeting, and I'll have that as an agenda item listed. I was waiting on the contract from Tyler with the new addendum and the actual numbers, which I now have in my possession.
With that, and I'm just asking, would that be a contractual item? In other words, the modules we currently have, we're paying for, so if we determine we don't need these modules going forward, then I guess we'd have to change the contract language before it's approved by the BOCC.
It's an
If you're
addendum.
gonna omit some modules that we currently have.
Correct, sir. So it's basically every year the way Tyler's been doing this, they've been submitting a one-page addendum extending the contract.
Right.
And in the one-page addendum we have in our possession now, it does that, but then it lists the modules that we want to exclude, depending on the vote of the BOCC and this committee. So, and it has all the numbers on what it would save us. It's approximately anywhere between $50,000 and $60,000 a year. I don't have it right in front of me. It's on my desk, actually.
But this is stuff that we don't need. I mean, it's not because those modules are being provided through another vendor, it's just we don't need it, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
And we're not really replacing it with other vendors, any of the modules in particular. Benefits Department expressed interest in some of the capabilities of the Civic HR, but it's something that's up for discussion.
The refund that we got from Munis that you used to go to San Antonio with, have you applied the balance to the bill?
I've applied the balance to the bills as they've come in. So I've applied it to one bill, and there's still a remaining credit there that we can apply towards other bills. But I have applied the balance towards a bill that we received, and we've already paid the invoice. So that balance is still there, and we could use it and finish paying off another bill. So, but we use the money for, is there some confusion?
Yeah.
What's the confusion?
Well, originally when this credit came in, before you asked them to cancel it, and then it was determined that you would use it for training, the entire thing was applied to roughly a $40,000 per month bill, correct? So it left us with a balance of $9,000 or so dollars.
Yes.
So you spent roughly $8,000 to $10,000 on your travel and your training to San Antonio, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if we have a $40,000 a month bill and we have roughly $30,000 left, how do we have a balance left on the credit?
The credit, we get bills from Tyler based in a quarterly way, right? So we get a bill from them, they say, hey, here's your bill, and right now, that's in the county clerk's wheelhouse. So we split the bill every year, all right? And I pay for 6 months out of my department's budget, and the county clerk pays for 6 months out of theirs. That's the way it currently stands. Don't know what's going to happen in the future. So we have this money, and it's just a matter of me meeting with the county clerk, saying, how do you want to pay the next bill, because now it's in their wheelhouse. We did apply it when towards an invoice we received for some training that Marine Jelinas came out for several $1,000s. We used it to and applied it towards her services. We haven't used it for any training. It's still there, and it's available to pay any bill that we want to pay with it.
And we had talked about what we will do is whenever we receive your report, we will go ahead and put that in the item, you know, for you to, whatever the remaining credit is, to apply it to the next Tyler Munis bill.
Correct.
I thought that's what the BOCC did.
I can't speak to that. I think you're right, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, we can fix that today.
Money's still there. We just apply it towards the next bill that comes in. Matter of fact, I think we recently received one just a day or two ago. So it'd be an easy, Mr. Hooten can use it and it'll be paid. That'd be positive for his budget because he has it budgeted to pay for the 6 months just like I do. So he would get that credit and that would be something good for his department.
So is IT paying the first 6 months or the clerk's office?
I think we pay the first 6 months and they pay the next 6 months because we're about 6 months now and we just turned it over to them. So we started in January or whenever. I have to look at the exact contract date, so I don't want to misspeak.
Okay.
And then finally, in the past, you've shared a requisitioning officer with HR Health and Safety. What are your plans?
The requisitioning officer with Health and Safety has been great for us. I hired a new financial administrator last year who has been a tremendous help. They're also a requisitioning officer. And the amount of work and invoices and contracts that my departments deal with based on my budget, I would like to start utilizing her more and have the HR department, health and safety requisitioning officer sort of serve as an alternate, so they'll be as a team. And it was kind of reversed in the past where Charlotte was acting as an alternate and Shanika was the primary. And I would like to switch those roles, so she can get more experience as a financial administrator, and Shanika would still act as an alternate, and Charlotte would be the primary.
Do you think that, given that Shanika's been probably a great benefit to you and saved you a lot of heartache, with assisting with your budget and your requisitioning, your encumbering, et cetera, do you think that you're in the position now where you can let her go and serve in that backup role, and that some of these issues that we've caught that District 1 has helped you to straighten out, now won't occur?
Yes. I mean, we did our whole budget this year, and all the requisitioning so far has been done by Charlotte, and that's the whole idea. And we want to have full continuity. Previously, when I first came on, all the financial people in my department were gone. So I was at a great disadvantage as a director trying to figure out what was left. Just left a budget from the previous year that I was working with, trying to make sense of all the details in the budget. Not only that is the massive influx of contracts, some of which were never even done. And so bringing her on has been a tremendous help. I think that we've got an excellent handle on our budget and our requisitioning. We have a breakdown of every detail in our budget. And this is something that it's very nice to have. The first year wasn't so much like that. There was definitely some chaos. So the chaos is no longer there. We have complete organization on our budget. Not to say it's not perfect, but it's very, very close. It's very workable. It's broken down in a way in a traditional financial form, but it's easy to read for anyone that has a financial background. And I'm happy to let any of you guys see it. We obviously went through DET, and we had a lot of great success with it. So I anticipate it just getting better. First year was definitely a rough go.
First year plus, probably, yeah.
Yeah, first year is certainly a challenge, no doubt about it.
So we can anticipate then that going forward, your contracts you won't need our assistance in helping you with your contracting situation. You won't need Shanika's assistance in making sure that you've encumbered properly, that everything is in place. You're assuring us that you're now ready to stand on your own two legs and move forward.
I'm pretty confident with that. I would certainly say that I would always be looking for help. I consider it a team effort. And Shanika is always a great help. So when I say that, it's not with the intent of I could fly solo on this. I'm not trying to do that per se, as much as I am just trying to strengthen the continuity of my department. And there may be from time to time that I do have to come to one of your district offices and ask for assistance on a complicated contract. Most of our contracts aren't that complicated, but certainly would anticipate there may be some in the future. So, and I do appreciate the help that you all have given me in the past, but
You guys,
Like Joe had referred earlier when we received your weekly report yesterday, you had indicated a email use and email records policy statement about a 10-page document.
correct.
Has the district attorney had the opportunity to look at that?
The district attorney has not reviewed that document. I would certainly welcome it. That is a draft policy.
Right.
And I did it in anticipation of the upcoming agenda item. I was going to wait till later to talk about this policy because I have a big stack of policies, and it's not my intent to overwhelm this committee with policies.
Right.
All the policies that I'm presenting, the drafts have been approved by the auditor.
Right.
So they've accepted them in their current form as good, and they're awaiting BOCC review and approval or this committee. So this committee has the ability to review and approve those policies. The DA has come to our office on numerous occasions based on their needs and asked for email information concerning civil cases, which is part of our duty.
Right.
So this policy helps cover that. And as you can see, it's a complicated world, and there's a lot of things to consider with email. It's not simple, I'll tell you that.
Right. I would suggest that you would have the DA review it, and then at that point in time, if you felt the auditor needed to weigh in, that'd be fine. But anything to do with privacy issues, I feel pretty strongly, which you were ultimately going to do, obviously, get the DA to weigh in, even before it comes to this committee.
Yes, sir.
But
So that would be proper for me to send the policies to that department first and have them review it before I put it on as a discussion item on this for this board?
Yes, that would be my wishes, because that way, if there were some situations that had to be addressed, it would be already done instead of
Perfect.
the committee looking at it and having questions about legalities or whatever.
Yes, sir, that's
That
no
would be my
problem.
suggestion.
I'm happy to do that, yes, sir.
Okay.
Hey, let me ask you one last thing. So, I really like this status report.
Thank you.
These, what do you call it here? Current issue analysis
Yes.
section. There seems to be a lot of kind of just day-to-day type, not real priority type stuff that you list here. Specifically, you list an employee where you instruct them to change their default password to something they can remember. I'm curious why it is that you feel like the board or this board or anybody would need to know that an employee needs to change their password to something they can remember if that's of that high a priority.
The reason why, everything that's listed in that current issues item comes out of my development department. So we have a number of custom applications that have been written in the county. And so we have to maintain lists of passwords for a host of
I understand
applications.
that, but why in the world does the whole world need to know that somebody couldn't remember their password? And it's important to me to know that I couldn't remember my password.
Sure. I could exclude items like that in the future. I have a
Well, if
list.
you don't have anything better to put in the report, I guess you can leave it in, but I just fail to see why it's important to single out an employee or employees, because this is not the first instance, this is just the one that I brought with me, over something as simple as they forgot their password.
Sure. We can modify the report. I include everything in there. I try to keep it to 3 to 4 pages. I could produce an exhaustive report that's much longer than
Well,
that.
you were told when you were hired, and as we've helped you a number of times, you need, obviously, give us what you think you need to give us. You've asked for feedback a number of times. I'm telling you, I don't understand the importance of singling out an employee and saying they can't remember their password. They were instructed to change it to something they can remember, right? You might as well put my name in there 100 times. I call all the time because I can't remember my password. I just don't understand. And there are other things with other departments and that it's of a similar nature. If it's that important, then continue it. But if it's not, I don't understand why.
Well, in the future, I'll make it more brief and exclude items that you don't see necessary, or anyone else for that matter. The idea of the report is to give a general overview and keep it as short as possible. Certainly, sometimes things slip in there that may not necessarily be needed, and I'll do a better job of vetting that before it gets into your hands.
More questions?
So did you make a motion that he would just have that policy
No.
go?
Yeah, I will. We'll just, when we receive this report, we'll just make a motion also to have the remaining credit from Tyler Munis to be applied to the next Tyler Munis bill. That would be what the board would like to do.
Well, I think the VLCC has spoken on that issue, but the email policy, you were gonna make a motion that he would send it to the DA?
Yes, I asked him to, yes. Yes, I felt that before it gets to this board, that the DA should vet it, because we'll just be reinventing the wheel if we're looking at it here, and then find out there's some items on there that the DA should weigh in on. And we can also make that part of the motion. Okay, do I have a motion to accept Rob's report, also to ask Rob to send any policy guidelines, proposed guidelines to the district attorney's office for their review? And number 3, the remaining credit that he has from Tyler Munis be applied to the next Tyler Munis invoice.
So moved.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
On items 11 and 12, the department heads aren't present, so there'll be no action on items 11 and 12. On item 13, discussion, review, and possible action. Action may include, but not be limited to, providing additional instructions to staff, receiving documents, and/or making a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners regarding establishing a new policy or modifying any existing policy for the MIS department to grant access to county emails and other electronically stored data.
Given the action that we took in his update,
Right.
where we discussed this, I would move to strike this item.
Okay, before we have a vote, the only thing that I would like to discuss, I have not had the opportunity to look in the county handbook. I'm not well versed on that. Do we currently have a policy discussing this? We do not? Okay, I have a motion and a second to strike this item. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 14, discussion, review, and possible action to make recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners regarding the fiscal year 17-18 contract, MOU, between Oklahoma County and the OSU Extension Service.
Good morning.
Morning. How are you, LaDonna?
I'm doing great, and you guys? Do you guys have the copy of the contract that I gave you, Steve?
I do.
Okay. I'd like to first,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to first take the time just real quickly, I know it's been a long meeting, to review what OSU Extension, what services they provide for the county residents. I provided you guys with our impact statement for 2016. This is something that we put together every year and provide it with our stakeholders to show you guys and also other people what we do and the outreach that we do in the community for Oklahoma County. We consist of 4 program areas in Oklahoma County. The first is 4-H youth development. Then we have family consumer science, and then we have horticulture, and then agriculture. So those are kind of the program areas that we provide out of our office. Within those 4 program areas, it might sound pretty simple, but it's not. There's a lot of different things that are entailed in that. In each of those program areas, we have volunteers that we have trained and that goes out in the communities and do services for us. And that's kind of just what I wanted to touch on real quickly. On the impact statement, if you look at the orange column, you can see that kind of down at the bottom, you guys can see that this, of course, was last year's numbers, but we had over 900 volunteers within our volunteer groups that have went out and serviced over 80,000 hours for Oklahoma County, and that comes out to the value of $1.7 million. So I just want to kind of show you guys, because I'm getting ready to talk my budget, but I want you to understand that you do provide us budget for my employees and my staff, that we reach so many more people and we train so many more people, and we try to make the biggest impact that we can in Oklahoma County with the money that you guys give us. So anyways, do you guys have any questions real quickly about our program areas or what we do in Oklahoma County?
Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm not sure how we want to proceed with this since it's our first time that we've done the contract, so you guys, if you want to interrupt and go a different direction, that's fine. But I think everybody has a copy of the contract that I submitted. This was the same contract that the DA reviewed for this current fiscal year. Yes, it was not signed, and I'm not going to go through that right now unless you guys want to address it later. But the one that we're looking at right now is for 17 and 18. There has been a few things that's different in this contract than the one the DA approved, and that's what I want to kind of just touch on real quickly, because I know you guys will decide whether or not to accept the contract, et cetera. On the first page of the contract, on number 1, of course, the budget amount, changed differently from last year, so that number is different. That number is $549,022.
Is that the number that was ultimately recommended by DET and approved by the budget board going forward for next fiscal year?
I was not notified anything on that.
Okay.
I was not a part of that, so,
All right.
I don't know if anyone else wants to speak of it, but, this is the amount that...
Well, I mean, I will speak of it. It was obviously, you're not a county department head, so you were not present during BET, and we did not go over your estimate needs in BET.
Right.
That's why we're going to address it through contractual means.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to explain in a minute the number, and that's the handout that I gave you guys. Number 2, the other thing that was different compared to the ones the DA approved last year is line number 2. At the very end, I added the words "and utilities" for the county building. I am going to ask in this presentation for some money to help with utilities for the county building to be able to function and provide services for the county. So that right there was added in, and on down at the very bottom, it kind of repeats itself again, and it says it again, county building utilities, and then again, of course, the money amount. And that's on number 2. And the other change that was made is on number 10, the second page. And I actually went over this with several people on campus, OSU Stillwater campus, and also I met with a lawyer on this because I guess a lot of times when you read something, you're not sure how one person can take it one way and the other person took it a different way. So I kind of went with the way the lawyer told me to do. And on number 10, you guys had on the second line where it says the reimbursement of said travel, you guys had the word payable by OSU in there, and I removed that and just put the reimbursement for said travel to be governed by the official travel, et cetera. And I will explain that when I have a chance to talk about my budget breakdown. But those are the only changes, those 2 things that I said. Yes.
Let me stop you real quick because I'm not sure, the version of the MOU that you handed does not have those
Hold on, Randy.
changes.
What you were handed is my recommended revised version of what LaDonna has presented to us. And I can, at the appropriate time...
And I've not seen that.
...explain to you what that is. And here's a copy for you. You can take that back to OSU.
Gotcha.
In the event this group...
Randy, what I'm reading to you is what OSU, we took what the DA, Oklahoma County DA, suggested this current fiscal year. So we took that document, OSU worked with me, the lawyer, on making these changes that I just presented to you guys, and I gave that document to Steve.
Okay, because nothing's linked to the agenda, and that's why I'm confused here. I mean, how many different versions are we talking about? You have a version, you have...
I was not aware of his version. I'm just aware of what I presented.
Right.
Well, let me, if I can, try to walk through the history of this. As you guys will recall, it was September or October of last year when the BOCC... Go ahead, y'all finish. Again. September or October of last year, the BOCC voted and approved a lease agreement and a new contract for funding with Oklahoma State University for extension services. As Steve noted, there was a DA's opinion that came out that basically said that OSU is not a county department. We have a contractual, for lack of a better term, a contractual relationship or obligation within our budget to provide funding for extension services. OSU extension service employees are employees of Oklahoma State University. So in short, what the BOCC did was said to Oklahoma State, here is a sum of money, perform your services. We didn't necessarily care what those services were, whether they used it for M&O, whether they used it for personnel, et cetera. We gave them a lump sum of money for the annual contract. OSU, for whatever reason, never signed and sent back the contract that the board approved last year. So we don't currently have a contract with Oklahoma State for the services that the county is receiving. They did, after about 5 or 6 months, finally send back the lease agreement, which spelled out what OSU was responsible for and what the county would be responsible for. So that's kind of the history of where we're at. So in the contract that we did last year, that the board did last year, that OSU did not sign, it didn't line item out what the budget amount was for, and I don't know that it's necessary that we do that. I don't think it is, here's your money, use it. They are to provide us quarterly reports.
Joe, may I interrupt? Last year, for the contract that you were talking about, I did submit an estimate of needs, and it was approved by the budget board, so we did operate
I understand,
through the M&O and travel. We followed county procedures.
Within the but you're not a county department, that was clear. But within the contract, it didn't line item out X dollars for personnel, X dollars for M&O, X dollars, right? It was...
That was correct, but that was after the budget board approved our money. And so we were operating using the money that was allocated through our estimate of needs.
But you could have used that money any way you wanted.
Well,
right.
we used it as
you can tell me, I wrote the contract. I read the DA's opinion. I mean, you can argue with me all day long. The fact of the matter is, OSU didn't sign the contract. We don't have a contract.
And I'd like to speak on that. You guys, when this all came down, it went to, of course, Stillwater, Dr. Kuhn, our Dean of Desmer, and the lawyer got involved. And if anybody's worked with, of course, I'm one little piece of OSU, so it did take quite a bit of time, and I was told to step off, that the lawyer was handling and that President Hargis was handling it, so I was pretty much hands-off. So believe me, I was hoping to have something done quicker and quicker, but it was totally out of my hands.
And I understand that.
So then when we finally got the lawyer to look at it, et cetera, and we came up with, the lease was part of it too, we had some conversations, since the budget board had already allocated the money and we were operating like that in this fiscal year, that we would continue that until we're, I guess, forced not to. And one big concern that I had when I visited with Steve on this, which was several months ago, was in the new operating system that we're going to be going to, OSU will be paying all the bills up front. So we will bill the county quarterly. So that meant I had to have some sort of mechanism in place on campus to pay my bills, which means I had to get contracts with vendors. I had to figure out how each person I pay, how I was going to pay it. And we have been working on that. So we're finally to the point where we feel okay. I mean, it was a little overwhelming because we've done extension this way for over 100 years, so it was a little overwhelming how we're going to pay the bills. And I'm just blessed that OSU Extension is going to be able to upfront me the money to operate until I build the county and to get the money back. So it's, we're really trying to be team players here, and we hope that you guys appreciate the services, but sometimes things are out of our hands, and the timing's not always how we want it.
The services are always appreciated.
Thank you.
What is at hand is the contract. It's not the services. It's not about the services. This is about the contractual relationship between the county and Oklahoma State, which is a multi-million, if not billion-dollar entity, correct?
That is not, the Oklahoma State University is, but we are not, we are OSU Cooperative Extension. We're separate than we don't receive funding exactly like your colleges do.
But you get grant funds, federal funding. There's a number of ways that the extension services throughout the country, not singling out OSU, throughout the country are funded, correct?
Correct. We get money from county, state, and feds.
Yes. Okay. But nevertheless, we don't have a contract now.
Correct.
OSU didn't sign it. We've continued to have a relationship. The bills have been paid. You've proposed a contract that has different language in it than what the board approved. last year.
Yes, I pointed those out, correct.
And my concern is that we'll have a contract this year and it'll go to OSU and it'll set for months again. Or they're only going to approve it if it's the language that they want, which is unnecessary.
And Joe, I had not seen I've not had a chance to look at it,
Mhm.
so I cannot comment on that. I'm hoping that it'd be something that we can come into agreement and get approved before the next fiscal year.
Well, basically, all it does, it changes the amount to reflect the amount that the budget board approved, which is $450,000. It changes the dates, and then in paragraph 16, it talks about this situation where if the board and OSU can't come to an agreement that will continue under basically temporary funding, given that OSU still hasn't signed a contract for the current fiscal year we're about to end, I am proposing that we strike that language. Then the paragraph 17 would just indicate that OSU, through its own funds, continue to operate the extension service if it so chooses until such time as a contract is signed by both parties. Then the funding from the county would kick in on a prorated basis. So if OSU languishes for 6 months and doesn't sign the contract, then you'd only get $225,000.
Okay, if I may, I'd like to talk about, I know Joe's mentioned that the budget board approved that, I was not present at that. Steve told me that I've had a chance today to come and talk about why I'm asking for what I'm asking. So that's the reason I gave you guys kind of my little requested budget breakdown. And I have put down every penny that I've worked hard on giving a true number on this to show you guys why I'm asking for that much, and if I don't get that much, what the results is going to be. I have listed in the contract, and Joe, I did not look to see if you did the same. I don't think so, but anyways, I've listed in the contract that I provided 4 different, I guess you could use the words categories: contractual services, travel, supplies and materials, and utilities. The reason I chose to list those 4 categories is because I got with OSU Extension Finance, and when they are going to be paying the bills, and when we get ready to invoice the county, these are kind of their subcategories that the money will be coming from. Because if I'm asking for a certain, I know there'll be certain times any of us has to have budget transfers, but I want you guys to know that this is where I need the money and what it's going to be used for. I want to be up front.
Can I stop you just right
Sure.
there? Do you recognize there are no transfers? There would be no budget board transfers with regard to your money.
Right.
Okay. So, if you put the line items as proposed in the version that you submitted in the contract, in the event that you needed to move money around, we would have to do an addendum to the contract. In the version that the board approved last year and the version that I am proposing,
Okay.
it provides you and Oklahoma State greater flexibility with the use of their money because it doesn't identify what the money is. It's for extension services.
Okay. And that's fine. Thank you, Joe, for because this is all new.
Right,
and
I understand.
So I appreciate that. I guess my Extension Finance wanted, and again, just for this presentation, I want you guys to see how all the money adds up. So I understand in the contract you would just put one total amount, but I'd like to kind of show you guys basically how OSU is going to have to pay it. A lot of stuff falls under contractual services. Any person that we pay as a vendor is considered contractual services. So that's kind of the reason I've listed, there's 11 of them there. So any of these people that we use as a vendor, which are these will be, is under contractual services. And you will see at the very bottom, number 11, that is us as contractual services, as staff, salaries, our fringe and benefits. And that, yes, sure. Oh, sure.
On your contractual services is, let's just take waste management. Is this a total cost or is it prorated out?
This is total cost using, looking at bills in the past. Is that what you mean for the year?
Right.
For the year.
In other words,
This is all year within,
It costs $500 a year for waste management.
right, it's about $47, $48 a month.
And OSU is not contributing to that, that's all money that you're requesting from the county.
On the waste management, well, that's kind of a trick question because it kind of all comes together. You know what I'm saying is, because, I mean, OSU, of course, is providing money too, and it's kind of the same thing. They just give us amount and we do with it. So that's kind of a yes and no question, I'm sorry, but, because they will provide, I guess, let me back up for a minute. I guess what they will provide is some salary, fringe and benefits, and some M&O money. Again, M&O money can be used however, whether it's waste management or whatever. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Do you have any idea as far as the total budget, how much the county provides and how much the state, 60/40, 30/70?
It's pretty close to 50/50. And that's the reason I'm sorry.
Okay, so you'd be getting more money this current fiscal year from OSU?
Oh, sure, yes. There is a formula that we've dealt with in the years, and they've changed the formula last year, so it's kind of, our director, he's an economic person, so he knows all that stuff, and I'm just trying to figure out. But these are the numbers that I was given, and I want to stress on number 11, that is salary, fringe, and benefits. That consists of, I want you guys to know this consists of 2 4-H educators, 2 family consumer science, I guess you could say 1 horticulture, and then 1 half ag horticulture. Ray kind of does ag and hort. And then myself as county director. And I do programming and I do mainly family consumer science since that's what my degree's in, but I help out in other areas. So that is a large number, I know. That is actually bigger than what the budget board approved. But you can see why I'm asking for that. That is the number that I have to have to keep my those are 7 educators, and I apologize. There's also, that number consists of 2 administrative assistants or secretaries and 1 program assistant. So that's 7 educators, 2 administrative assistants, and 1 program assistant. And that's, do my math right, is that 10? 7, 8, 9, 10. So that is 10 staff for Oklahoma County. Again, I just want you to know each one of us educators, we work with volunteer groups and we reach way more people than what I'm asking. But anyways, you can also see my utilities that I have not had to pay in the past. That's going to be, I mean, all of this, that's going to be big time. I mean, we're talking about $14,000 that I have to pay to keep, you know, the lights on and water, et cetera. So that's the reason, these are the numbers. These are how it comes down to, and this is why I'm pleading for you guys to consider what we do. And again, I mean, I've really bare bone this. I mean, I'm an honest person, and this is what I need. If I don't get it, unfortunately, I'm going to have to eliminate a staff. I've already been told, so.
Let me ask you a question, because again, this is kind of a new process.
Sure.
And I've only been back since January, so I'm still playing catch up here. Do I understand you correctly that the amount, this $549,000 that you've requested, is essentially half of your total budget for the year? Or is this 100% of your total budget?
You're talking about total OSU, you're talking about the whole...
Your total budget?
It is, it's more like the 475, the number 11 for our staff salary, fringe, and benefits. Well, plus M&O money. To be honest with you, I'm not given like a budget like that. I mean, that'd be nice.
Sure.
It's a little gray.
So, okay, let me rephrase it then. So this is a little more than 50% of your overall budget. You're saying that like $475,000 would be about half of what you spend every year.
That's true. And the reason why I say 50-50, it is 50-50 statewide. The problem that falls into this, where the county is paying a little bit more, is basically for my utilities, my upkeep of a building. And we are very unique when it comes to Oklahoma County having our own facility. Most of the places are in courthouses or et cetera, so they don't have the expenses But these are expenses that's above that I'm having to ask for to keep our, a building going.
Well, sure, we're very fortunate. I mean, some county extension services operate out of a closet in the county courthouse, so we're very fortunate.
We are.
One of the things that you said is that you have not had to pay these utilities in the past. Could you kind of expand on that so I understand why they're coming up this year?
Well, as you guys know, for over 50 years, we were over at OSU OKC campus.
Don't assume that I know anything, so.
Okay, I'm sorry, Randy.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
You're not talking down to
But
me.
you remember back when we were
Sure.
at the OSU OKC campus. Okay, so when that building got sold by the county, and we had to find a place to go, so we went to our existing building that the county built for us, and we're very grateful for that. And when we was at the old building, we never paid our utilities. I mean, I inherited this, I became county director, and it just kind of went that way. And I guess it was, well, I'm not sure who was in that position back then, but we never paid any utilities. So when we moved over to the new building, which was 2 years ago in April, I guess it's the BOCC, is that Kelly that does, I guess it was in the BOCC, is she the one that pays most of the bills, I think? They were being paid, by them, and nothing was said. I never asked for money in my budget for that. And then when the lease thing came around, and Joe can talk about that, that's kind of when, in the lease is saying that I would pay utilities. We have the lease we'll talk about in a minute. But that's kind of when the lease, it was actually last September of 16 is kind of when all this kind of came about. And it's in the lease that we agreed and signed.
What's the rent you pay?
I haven't paid it yet. Is it $10? Is that, I've got to look at my lease.
Right, so Oklahoma State pays zero rent, correct?
Correct. But again, I just want to stress that services we do is for Oklahoma County residents.
Would it be beneficial to take the changes that have been proposed or the amendments to your contract that have been proposed by Mr. Blau to your council that you've been working with, I assume through OSU, because, again, those terms that he's proposed may be acceptable to OSU. We don't know. Would that be beneficial to be able to discuss those amendments that he's made with your council?
I would have to. I'm not, of course, allowed to sign anything. That all goes up to the dean. So that's kind of what happened last year is the BOCC came up with this contract and lease without consulting OSU. They just came up with it.
Well, actually, the contract and the lease were a result of the DA's opinion.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. But OSU was not consulted.
In fairness, we assumed that Oklahoma State was some kind of quasi-county entity through the years. We had clarification that you're not using purchasing anymore, correct?
We are right now because that's where our money is. But as of July the 1st, that will all change.
And Randy, I'd be happy if you guys like this language. What I'm attempting to do is not have the BOCC or the county, whom the taxpayers are on the hook for all liability associated with all of our contracts, not just the BOCC, go through another 8-month period without a contract. And so my question would be to Aaron, if we currently don't have a contract. So the 15-16, I guess, had the language about you would continue with temporary appropriations. Given that there's no contract, if we were to hit July 1st, I would assume that there would be no money available from the county to Oklahoma State. Is that correct?
I would assume that as well.
So if we send this language that I'm proposing, the language that the board approved last year that apparently they were happy with, up to Oklahoma State, and they don't sign it, then there is no continuing appropriations, at least in my view. And that the language that also is in the current, or the 2 years ago contract that talks about once an agreement is reached, it would be retroactive back to July 1. That wouldn't be applicable either, and I would assume it would be from the signing of the document by both parties. So Oklahoma State, by inaction, could stand to lose a $450,000 appropriation if they want to argue.
Sure.
Again.
Well, and it seems to me,
assuming the board
right,
continues down this road,
there's a couple things that we need to accomplish or that we would want to accomplish. Number one is getting an agreement between Oklahoma County and OSU Extension Services. I mean, that's the thing. We want some sort of MOU. Number two, we want to expedite that for two reasons. Number one, because in the past, for whatever reason, we were slow-played. We didn't have an agreement. We want something in writing that sets out the terms. Number two, that's to the benefit of our Oklahoma County extension here because you need funds. You need that $450 or whatever amount it is that we're able to fund so that you continue these services. So it seems like time is of the essence for all of the parties here. However, I know that trying to do things on the fly right here, I know you don't have the authority to just say, yeah, that language is fine. I know that has to go up the chain. At the same time, and we can call a special meeting anytime we want just for this purpose. June starts this week, and we need to get this done before July 1st. I can imagine that you can communicate that time is of the essence, that we need to make this top priority for council to review. If they can live with these changes that Mr. Blau's made, great, we'll get it signed. That gives us time, because one of the things that I need to do is, talk with my office and see, what can we do as far as funding? Are we stuck with the $450? Are there additional funds that we can make towards utilities? Is that something that we want to be responsible for? I mean, I have some homework to do on this, and so again, my opinion, as we've been discussing this, is all important. I'm learning a lot. Is to defer this item. I'm not moving that at this point, but I'm just saying that would give me an opportunity to wrap my head around this. I think that would give you some time to take this up the chain of command, and also if we have any questions for council that maybe we need to talk about with the proposed language.
Actually, Randy, I think you did a great job kind of summarizing where we're at and the need for movement on this sooner rather than later. So it would be my hope that this body would recommend going ahead and sending this up to the BOCC for their consideration. I would think if the BOCC, although they didn't do it last year, if the BOCC signed a contract and sent to Oklahoma State, it would indicate where they're at, and there's not a need for additional review. I just think we need to get the BOCC moving on this, and unfortunately, come July 1, it appears that there's no funding available.
My comment is when this all came about in September, I mean, we have been operating away for over 100 years, so it's kind of okay, this is a different type of, we got to figure this out. So I really, Joe, I've not looked real closely to the contract. I kind of stepping out on the limb here because I have worked closely with the lawyers and my bosses and understand the importance, and that's the reason Steve and I have been having this conversation a month ago, because we knew that it was very timely. I think everything's in agreement with this. Again, I don't have the power to say that, but the only thing that I'm trying to voice my opinion on is that I am not in agreement. I do need more money than what the contract says, and of course that's something that Randy made the comment, and that was kind of my question to Steve last week, is are we able to do that? So I appreciate you guys.
You understand that even if the board were to say you get $549,000, it doesn't mean it's so, right? The budget board would have to approve that.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. When the budget board approved that was my thing with Steve, is that a done deal, or is there a chance for us to get more money? And that's when he said I could come here today and show you why I need more money.
That's why I invited you up here, because ultimately anything that exceeds $450,000 would have to be approved by the budget board.
Right,
and
correct.
I just like to go on record. I know that time is of the essence right now, and I agree that we should put the revised contract across the board. If the board approves it, then you know our intentions, and then your lawyers could look at it, and basically it would cut down a lot of time instead of reconvening this meeting and then going through the BOCC process.
And again, I'm okay with that. The money amount is what I'd like for you guys to consider.
Sure, and I think that the BOCC would also take the opportunity to ask questions that they would have about that. I have no problem. Let's send it up to the board. They can make the ultimate decision, and I think that also behooves OSU to look at the contract, to get back with you, because that's going to be, I would assume, on next Monday's agenda. Be the first Monday in June. So,
I mean, believe me, I'll go back and scan this and send it on up to Stillwater, make some phone calls.
Great.
Because, I mean, I want to move it too.
And knowing, LaDonna, that you're in a difficult position, and I appreciate you can't, you're being asked to come here and sell out the board and us on something that you don't even have the authority to sign off on, and I appreciate all the time that you've taken to try to explain and educate us, and you've done a great job. I would hope that someone with some authority might be able to be at whatever BOCC agenda this is appearing on.
Yeah, are we thinking it's going to be Monday or?
Yeah, Monday the 5th of
Okay.
June would be the next BOCC meeting.
The authority person that signs the contract, of course, is the dean, and on such short notice, I'm not sure if I can get him, but I have a district boss that might can come and help with questions or whatever, but I'll see what I can do.
The one thing I think you can communicate to them is, absent a contract being ready to go for the upcoming fiscal year, the money's probably going to stop. There's no contract now, so we conceivably.
And we were okay with signing the contract, but the only thing when I talked to Steve that scared me was the minute we signed that contract, and say it was just March the 20th, I'm making that up. Once that contract was signed, we had to have all the money, all the mechanisms in place on campus to pay bills. I mean...
Well, you had to have that done in September, or actually 60 days after the lease last year, and it's apparently not done yet.
The lease is different than the contract. The contract's the one that was saying about payment of the bills.
No, the lease talked about all the utilities, et cetera, being transferred into Oklahoma State's name. The point is, Oklahoma State's had 8 months and to get all this lined out, and I understand it's 100 years of history, and this is not at you, it's just Oklahoma State's failure to enter into an agreement with the county has placed at jeopardy all these services that you've done a great job talking about. If Oklahoma State refuses to enter into an agreement with the county, then these services potentially go away. It's kind of, this reminds me a lot of dealing with the Department of Human Services. We'll sign the contract as long as it has the language that we want in it. It's one way. A negotiation has to be 2 ways.
Understood.
So my motion would be that we recommend to the Board of County Commissioners entering into approving the contract language and sending to OSU the revised version of the MOU that I have submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, now we can talk about the lease, LaDonna.
Okay. It's the same lease that we signed 3 or 4 months ago. I can't quite remember the date.
Right.
I will let you guys know that we do have all the, it's been a chore. I just found out that trying to work with utility companies, we keep telling them to put them in our address and they're still coming here. I just found another one in my box. But when working with Kelly, we've been paying them, but we're just trying to get them in our name. I guess it's a little bit more confusing than we think because of all the accounts and that type of thing. And anyway, time we say Oklahoma County, they want to send it here. So we're working on that. So we've been paying the bills and we've been doing our best to get everything into our names. Found out we need to say a thank you to our partners, Oklahoma City County Health Department, because we found out for over 2 years they have been paying our water bill. I had to get down and to the meter and read the number and finally figured out that it was going to Kelly's like, I'm not paying them, and I'm like, who's paying our bills? So a big thank you to them, but we do have it in our name now, so we're doing that. The only thing that I do want to mention is the IT has been very, very complicated. I'd like to thank Dane, Rob's and staff, for helping us with that. He's kind of been our lead person between Dane and my person Bronson on campus. They talk IT, LaDonna doesn't. They talk IT. It's just a little bit more complicated than you would think because it's all connected to our phone systems, which I just bought a couple of years ago, the voice over IP, and we found out that those are actually old, so we're probably having to get all new phones. So it's a little bit more complicated, but we're doing our best. We had to go out for quotes. We had to get 3 bids, and finally got our 3rd bid in, so that's the reason it kind of made us kind of slow. But we're doing our best to get our IT on our own.
If I have any questions? And we do have a signed copy of their lease going forward for 17-18.
Oh, we do have that. That's right.
Yeah.
Dr. Kuhn did sign
Right.
And
The lease.
Or, I'm confused too, Steve. I'm trying to
No,
remember.
17-18.
We have for both. Is that correct? Do I have one for both?
Well,
I'm sorry. I kind of lost
are
track
you
too.
asking, do we currently have a lease that is in place with Oklahoma State? Yes, we do. They returned that,
yeah.
on
April.
the board, yeah.
But have I submitted, have we
And then
did one for 17-18?
yeah, I think so. It says, 18th day of April,
Right.
and I guess this is Dr. Kuhn?
Dr. Kuhn,
Yeah.
So
okay.
we're good on those.
On the lease. My only issue, the lease language does appear to be exactly the same. So I think the board would not have a problem probably approving this. My only issue would be the concern that we again approve a lease in which OSU doesn't follow up with the contractual language. But that's just something the board can decide. But it's been 8 months.
I think since we already sent the modified version of the MOU up to the board, I move to recommend approval of the 17-18 lease.
The recommendation that the board approve the lease.
Correct.
Yes.
Recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, LaDonna.
Thank you.
And I'll send you electronically that file so you don't have to scan. Make it easy.
Okay, we'll come back to item 16. Item 17, discussion and possible action to make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners regarding organization and implementation of the BOCC Employee Benefits Department, including but not limited to providing staffing levels, salaries, job description, advertising positions, and interviewing applicants.
I have a question about this item. This committee met in special session or special meeting and then executive session to interview applicants. Would this be the proper venue and item to recommend employment based upon the interviews? Okay, that answers my question.
We meet again on June 7th. Is that right?
Yeah.
The 7th? Randy, well, if I heard Aaron right, this is not the proper language. So it sounds like you're wanting to move forward or discuss at least the items that were talked about in executive session. Aaron, would it be as simple as getting that agenda and taking those action items and putting on the next? Okay. All right. So do we need to do that as a motion, or Matthew, will you just put those on? Randy, you want that as a motion, or?
I don't think, it'll just be a request for an agenda item.
Okay.
To follow up on our executive session from the special meeting.
So is there a motion to strike or defer item 17?
Unless somebody has any questions or recommendations, I would move to defer this item to the next agenda as well.
Or no, it's a regularly occurring agenda item, correct? So we don't need to defer it? Or is it, okay.
I think this is the first one, yeah.
Okay.
Aye.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Going back to item 16. Is there any new business? Seeing none. Any citizen participation? Seeing none. Joe, any comments?
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I had a discussion with Matthew. We were talking about some agenda items that were appearing, and Matthew had indicated that he had got a number of questions regarding whether or not people needed to come to these meetings. And the reason that this committee was formed in part was to provide us with an opportunity to interact with you all and you with us. And so I told Matthew, and of course he works for a different elected official, but if your name, your department appears on an agenda, I would go ahead and show up, because I can't predict the future with regard to what I might want to ask or what might occur in your department that would necessitate you all informing this group collectively and perhaps getting some feedback. And I understand that it takes a little bit of time to come down here and set, and perhaps you don't do anything other than get up and say all is rosy. But this group was put together in part to allow us to have feedback and interaction and to be able to assist you all when needed. So I understand it's not always ideal to have to, in the middle of your morning, stop what you're doing and come down here, but please, if your item appears, either show up or send somebody, because I can't predict the future.
Well, I appreciate everybody's time and attention and your work to be prepared this morning. I know this can be tedious, like Mr. Blouse said, but again, I'm always amazed by just the breadth of areas that Oklahoma County covers as far as the things that we do. And so I appreciate that, and thank you for your time.
I hope everyone had a good Memorial Day. I know I did. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.